They shackle me in carbon-tempered alloy, like it mattered. 2 guards on either side, 6 more behind. Rifles trained on me. The hallway we walked was sterile, lined with dull blue lighting and silent contempt. Above, the banners of the Galactic Concord fluttered on static field poles, each one a symbol of peace forged in blood not their own. My blood, our blood. The tribunal chamber loomed ahead, oval-shaped, 20 meters high, designed to humble. And it did for most. Glass-smooth obsidian pillars reached skyward like claws. The ceiling glowed with soft white light, mimicking sunlight from a star that no longer existed. My boots echoed against the polished floor, the rhythm slow, deliberate. I didn't resist. I didn't speak. Let them think I was broken. The crowd inside hushed as I was led through the open gates. Delegates from over 50 alien species lined the semicircular tiers. Judges, 5 of them, towering Vron from the outer spiral, watched from an elevated dais, cloaked in judgment and self-righteousness. And in the center, the seat of guilt, a platform with a containment field designed for war criminals, terrorists, and monsters. They put me there. Human Commander Elias Voss intoned the central judge, voice amplified by the chamber's acoustics. You stand accused of crimes against the Concord, mass insurrection, planetary sabotage, unauthorized use of restricted technologies, and the deaths of over 9,000 sentients. How do you plead? I lifted my head. The room leaned forward. Even the translator drones buzzed quieter. I plead human. A ripple passed through the room like a tremor. Whispers in every dialect slithered across the tiered rows. Disgust, confusion, curiosity. Only the Vron judge remained still. The judge's compound eyes narrowed. Is that a confession? No, I said. It's a warning. They think I'm here to beg, to explain, to be dissected morally, politically, even historically. They think this tribunal is the conclusion of a tragic mistake. But this isn't an ending. It's ignition. Let me take you back, because none of them here will tell it right. Not the Concord, not the docile historians who record their piece like it was handed down by divine decree. No, you need to hear it from the source. From a man they chained like a beast because they couldn't kill the fire inside him. It started 2 years ago. Earth, as we knew it, had been absorbed into the Concord after losing the war compliance. That's what they called it. A bloodless phrase for a war soaked in ash and sacrifice. They said integration would bring harmony, trade, stability, access to technology beyond imagination. What we got was occupation, surveillance, disarmament, and a leash so tight we forgot how to breathe. I was a captain then, one of the few they allowed to remain in uniform, more for optics than for power. We were paraded like pets, given medals while our orbital stations were dismantled and our soldiers sent off-planet under the guise of diplomacy. What they didn't know was that humanity doesn't go quietly. We plan, we whisper, we remember, and some of us prepare. I joined the underground within 6 months. Not the kind that set bombs or hijacked transport freighters. The other kind, the dangerous kind. The kind that reads, learns, builds. We didn't need alien tech. We needed old earth fire. Ingenuity, desperation. The kind of madness born from having your home turned into a museum exhibit. We developed tech that didn't exist in their databanks. Weaponized gravitational folds. Atmospheric destabilizers. Neural war codes that infected their AI systems. And we waited until one day we didn't. The flashpoints lit up like constellations, Guam Station, Mars Terraform Zone, Europa shipyards. Each one struck by what the Concord would later call coordinated terrorist actions. They weren't terror. They were reclamations. And I led them. I never killed civilians. Never targeted innocents. But when the time came to collapse the Concord's forward base over Titan's North Pole, I didn't hesitate. It wasn't war. It was surgery. Necessary. Precise. Merciless. They hunted me for 7 months before they caught me. Not because I ran, but because I led them where I wanted. Into the trap. Into fear. Now I sit here in their trial of peace, wrapped in their chains, listening to them list my sins like they're reading a menu. They think I'm here to answer. I'm here to end it. Because the truth is, I didn't come alone. Every tribunal stream is public, every system tuned in, and every resistance cell in the galaxy just received my signal. My trial is not the climax. It's the call. The first sign something was wrong came when the lights dimmed for just a breath too long. To the casual observer, it was nothing. A fluctuation in the chamber's ambient lighting. A ripple in the air, dismissed as cooling vents adjusting to the rising tension. But to those who knew the language of subroutines and sabotage, it was a whisper, a handshake, a spark that leapt across firewalls like lightning through dry grass. I sat perfectly still. The Vron judges hadn't noticed. Not yet. The chamber's AI hadn't either. It would, but far too late. The thing about restricted Terran code is that it doesn't behave like theirs. It doesn't overwrite or brute force. It hides. It waits. It learns your rhythms until it can dance right between your thoughts. I leaned forward slightly in the field of containment. Not enough to seem aggressive, just enough to signal back. And somewhere, a world away, someone very important pressed a single button. It started in the drones. The floating translator units that hovered like beetles over the delegates began to twitch. A flicker of red. A stutter in their vocalizations. Small things. Harmless things. But then one of them said something it shouldn't have. Humanity never surrendered. The crowd froze. The Mahari delegates' tendrils flared in confusion. The Shitharai ambassador clicked his mandibles in offense. That was not my translation, the Mahari hissed. I smiled, because that wasn't just code. That was poetry. You don't win against humans by erasing our weapons. Our weapons are never what you think. You can take our guns. You could dismantle our fleets. But if even one of us remembers, then you haven't won anything. The judges call for order. The tribunal guards, Zanari, big brutes with thick hides and blunt minds, raise their rifles toward me, like it mattered, like a weapon ever saved them from what we are. The central Vron judge glared down at me. Cease your provocations or be silenced permanently. I haven't said anything yet. I replied calmly, but you will. Another flicker of light, this time stronger. The banners overhead began to change. Where once they displayed the Concord's insignia, a serene spiral surrounding a unified star, they now bled red. Slowly, as if the symbol were rotting from the inside, each banner melted into a new image. A human fist, wrapped in chains, breaking them wide open. Cries of outrage surged across the chamber. Security breach. Lock the chamber. Disable the prisoner. I stood up. The containment field tried to push me back, but the inhibitors had already been looped into a recursive logic trap. The force field pulsed, then collapsed with a whimper. 8 guards raised their weapons. I lifted my bound hands. Before you shoot, I said, you might want to check whose orders you're following. The lead guard paused, an implant blinking at his temple. His eyes widened. The override code had already hit his neural link. It wasn't just a virus. It was an old Earth anthem embedded in compressed subroutines, the kind that rewrites loyalty at the emotional core. Music, memory, command. He blinked again, lowered his weapon. I nodded. Good soldier. 2 of the others didn't hesitate. They fired. I moved, not because I could dodge plasma rounds, but because I knew where they'd hit. The back wall erupted in smoke and noise, designed to create panic. Not fatal, just enough chaos. Enough to make the entire tribunal chamber forget what they were doing and remember who they were afraid of, because fear is the oldest form of control, and humanity had been afraid long enough. I turned slowly, walking through the smoke, chains dragging behind me, not running, not hiding. Let them see, let them remember, because what none of them understood, and what the Concord never wanted to admit, is that peace is not the natural state of sentient species. It's a pause, a breath between storms. And when you try to force it, especially on something as chaotic, emotional, and alive as humanity, you get a war you can't even understand. And this tribunal? It was the ignition point. The crowd surged. Some delegates fled. Others shouted orders, columns lighting up like fireflies. The judges retreated into their blast-shielded platform. Too late. Their security AI was already running on Earth-made logic gates. A virus disguised as diplomacy. A rebellion wearing the face of a prisoner. Me. And across the stars, in the shadow of this chaos, the others would rise. My brothers on Vorex. 7. My sisters hiding in the ice cities of Nirlon. The forgotten colonies. The silent labs. The sleeper cells buried inside Concord academies and diplomatic envoys. They would see the banners, hear the drones, know that I had walked into their holy place in chains, and left it burning behind me. They say memory is the enemy of empire. The Concord thought they could bury ours under treaties and propaganda, make us forget the sound of our own defiance, strip Earth of its teeth, rewrite our history as barbarism dressed in nostalgia, then hold us up as a cautionary tale. But ashes remember the fire that made them. And as I walked through the smoldering chaos of the tribunal chamber, the banners of a broken galaxy falling like shrouds, I heard the sound that every tyrant fears more than gunfire. Laughter. One of the delegates, an old Gurani warlord turned politician, sat slumped in his seat, blood leaking from a wound in his side, but laughing with his jagged teeth bared. "You mad bastard," he coughed. "You actually did it." I paused. "I'm just getting started." The tribunal chamber was sealed now. Emergency lockdowns had engaged. The doors were reinforced, and the room was airtight. No escape unless you had clearance. Or unless you were the escape plan. I knelt beside the Gurani, removed a sliver of shrapnel from his shoulder. It wasn't mercy, it was necessity. I needed witnesses. I needed voices. If the galaxy only saw fire, they'd miss the spark that lit it. "Do you know why I let them capture me?" I asked. He coughed again, laughing still. "Enlighten me, human." I leaned in, because peace doesn't fall from the sky. It burns from the inside. Across the room, the last of security drones buzzed, now fully hijacked. They began projecting my image across every wall, and more than that, across every open Concord communication network in the sector. My face, my voice, my words. To the citizens of the Concord, you have been told we are criminals. You have been told we are extinct. You've been told wrong. My name is Elias Voss. I am human, and I am not here to beg. I am here to remind you what fear feels like. I am here to show you what it looks like when the ashes rise. The feed cut, only be replaced by archive footage the Concord had suppressed for years. The bombardment of Reykjavik. The Concord elite watching from orbit as Earth's final defense grid was overwhelmed. Human civilians locked behind refugee zone walls, while alien allies walked free in our capital. It played on loop. Truth. Raw and unsanitized. And as the delegates watched their lives unravel, I made my way to the center of the chamber. The platform where I'd once stood in chains was now scorched and empty. I raised my voice, not for show, but for signal. The tribunal has failed. The Concord's peace is a cage, and humanity will no longer wear it. The smoke above me swirled, then parted as a shape descended from the hole I'd torn open in the ceiling. Black, angular, silent, a human stealth dropcraft. The Sparrow, the last surviving ship from the Iceland Rebellion, now fully upgraded by rogue engineers on the outer belt, cloaked against scanners, undetectable by Concord frequencies. The moment I triggered the override sequence during my interrogation, she began her descent. She hovered above the ruined chamber, like a blade ready to fall. The ramp opened. A familiar voice came through my implant. "Welcome back, Commander. Did you miss the war?" Every damn minute. I stepped onto the ramp, but just before the doors sealed, I looked back at the shocked judges trapped in their shields, at the delegates scrambling to decode what they'd just seen, at the shattered emblem of a galaxy that thought it had buried us. I came in chains. I said quietly more to myself than anyone else. "And now I leave you in the ones you forged." The Sparrow roared skyward. As we ascended, I saw the glow of riots erupting across the Concord capital, like fireflies flickering into wildfire. It had begun, but this wasn't victory. Not yet. This was just the collapse of the old world. Next, we had to build a new one. And building always begins in the rubble. You can't build a revolution on rage alone. Rage burns hot. It destroys. But when the fire dies down, you're left with silent smoke and too many bodies. I've learned it the hard way. The Sparrow soared through Concord airspace, cloaked in static haze, 100 disrupted security networks. We passed orbital batteries stuck in silent reboot cycles. The Capitol's defense grid was paralyzed, not by brute force, by something far simpler. Hope. That was the weapon they never prepared for. Not viruses or bombs. Hope that things could change. Hope that Earth hadn't vanished into myth. That someone, somewhere, still remembered what it meant to fight back. My pilot turned in her seat. Commander Reza Malik, former Terran Fleet intelligence, presumed dead 5 years ago during the siege of Ganymede. Her eyes burned like someone who'd waited too long for this moment. "You know," she said, "when we pulled you out, I thought you were going to burn the tribunal and vanish, like a symbol. Instead, you broadcast every Concord war crime in the archive and left their government in public collapse." I shrugged. Symbols don't build movements. Truth does. She snorted, still the idealist. "No," I said quietly, watching the stars shift as we left atmosphere. "Just tired of graves." The Sparrow docked at a hidden outpost embedded in the derelict hull of an old mining colony. Station Icarus, a shell from Earth's first wave of expansion. Abandoned, forgotten, but now reborn. Engineers swarmed us as we landed. Human, mostly, but not all. That's the thing the Concord never understood. They weren't the only ones who hated what they'd become. Plenty of their own had watched the peace rot from within, watched cultures sterilized, languages banned, memories buried under treaties and holograms, and some of them had joined us. I walked down the ramp into the heart of the station. The hangar roared with motion. Supplies being loaded, ships being outfitted, refugees being trained. But as I entered the command chamber, everything stopped. All eyes turned to me. I wasn't a man anymore. I was momentum. I nodded to the nearest officer. Status. Captain Sura, ex-Concord defectee, brought up a holomap. Your broadcast reached every major channel. 17 systems are reporting unrest. 5 declared planetary sovereignty within the hour. 2 Concord military outposts went dark, either overrun or defected. And the fallout? Judicial Concord forces have gone into containment mode. Martial law. They're hunting anyone even suspected of watching your speech. Typical. Control the narrative. Choke the truth. How long until they trace the Sparrow's burn trail? 6 hours. Maybe less. I turned to gather commanders. Half of them ghosts of Earth's past. The rest rebels forged in the silence of the outer systems. I didn't break the tribunal just to make them bleed. I did it so the galaxy would remember what it felt like to breathe. They listened. This isn't about revenge. We don't torch planets. We don't target civilians. That's not us. That's them. Some look down. Some clench their fists. We expose their lies. We hit their infrastructure. And we remind their people that the Concord is not inevitable. That obedience is not survival. That the fire hasn't gone out. It's been waiting. A silence followed, heavy with something dangerous. Conviction. Then Malik spoke from the comms desk. "We just got a ping from the Cradle Worlds." I turned sharply. "Which one?" "Elora, deep Concord territory." But the signal was Terran pattern. Iden's signature says it's from Dr. Elias Voss. My breath caught. My brother. He was the one who stayed behind. The one who refused to fight, not out of fear, but out of principle. A scientist. A builder. He believed the Concord could be reformed from within. If he's reaching out now, put it through. Secure line. Static crackled. Then a voice. "Elias, if you're hearing this, I was wrong. They've started the purges. Quiet ones. Hidden. You didn't break the Concord. You revealed it. I'm sending you everything I've gathered. Names. Locations. Labs where they've been building something. Something human. But not human. They called it Project Harmony. You need to stop it, or what's coming won't be a war. It'll be extinction." The message ended. The room held its breath. I stood still, the weight of the moment settling into my bones like gravity reasserting itself. Prep the strike team, I said. Reza frowned. We just destabilized their capital and kicked off a dozen uprisings. You want to hit a black lab in core territory now. No, I replied, jaw tight. I want to end what they started before it finishes becoming something worse. Because if what Kalen said was true, if the Concord had begun experimenting on us, on our DNA, our minds, our memories, then what we were fighting wasn't just tyranny. It was erasure. Deep Concord territory. Planet Elra. Coordinates classified. Surface quiet. Underground, a different story. We didn't arrive in a fleet. That would have been suicide. Just one stealth corvette, flying dark, systems cold. We ghosted in on thermal silence, slipping between orbital patrols like a whisper beneath a scream. Elra was a Concord paradise. Surface cities so pristine they look fake. Skies controlled by atmospheric regulators. Every cloud sculpted, every bird tagged. But the surface was a lie. The truth lay 6 kilometers below it, buried in the crust like a secret infection. Project Harmony. The name alone was a violation. Harmony was a term Concord used to describe humanity's forced integration, the stripping of language, of culture, of history. They erased our songs, our myths, our wars. They said it was for the sake of peace. But now I knew they hadn't stopped at memory. They had turned to biology. The strike team was 10 strong, each one hand-picked. Soldiers, hackers, 2 ex-Concord AI engineers. And at my side, Captain Reza Malik, the only person alive I trusted to pull me out of hell if I fell into it. The insertion point was a half-collapsed mineral shaft once used during Elra's colonization phase. Concord never bothered to seal it. Why would they? No one had dared touch Eliran bedrock in decades. We descended in silence. When we hit the perimeter wall, solid black alloy infused with Concord nanolocks, our engineer, Gene, cracked it open with a smile and a 40-year-old Terran virus disguised as a love song. Inside was not what I expected. There were no guards, no screams, no torture labs. It was quiet, sterile, peaceful, harmony, which made it all the more terrifying. The halls were white and seamless, like walking through the inside of a thought that hadn't been fully formed. Lights hummed above us, casting no shadows. Then we saw them, rows of containment pods. Hundreds, maybe thousands, each one with a human inside, not restrained, not suffering, just still, eyes closed, breathing slow, connected to neural interface systems that looped into the walls like veins. Reza whispered, "Cryo?" "No," I said, stepping closer. "They're awake." Gene confirmed it with a scan. All vitals nominal. Conscious activity detected. Theta wave entrainment. They're dreaming. Dreaming what? Reza asked. That's when the projections began. The walls flickered, and the world changed. Suddenly, we weren't in a lab. We were standing on a beach. Earth's coast, maybe the Pacific Northwest, complete with salt air and the sound of waves. The detail was too perfect. The illusion wasn't for us. It was for them. They built simulated dreamscapes, I realized aloud. They're feeding each subject an artificial utopia, designed from memory, from longing. Reza's face went pale. They're rewriting them, from the inside out. They're not just erasing humanity. I whispered. They're replacing it. Gene tapped a console and overlaid the simulation with neural mapping data. What we saw chilled me deeper than any battlefield ever had. Each subject was having their memories overwritten slowly, painlessly. No trauma, no resistance, just quiet dissolution. The end of human identity hidden inside a dream. And some of the pods were empty. Reza found the records first. Clones, test subjects, hybrids grown from extracted human genetic templates and spliced with neural pacification protocols. We thought they were banning human soldiers. I murmured. They weren't banning us. They were building us better versions. Ones that don't resist, don't question, don't burn down tribunals. She swallowed. Ones that obey. Suddenly the room hissed. We spun, weapons raised. From behind the containment rows, a figure stepped forward, not armored, not armed, just serene. A man, tall, pale skin, eyes too calm. He smiled. You made it, Elias. I was wondering when you would. Who the hell are you? Reza Bart. I'm the prototype, he said, still smiling. The first successful iteration. Harmony Prime. I stepped forward. You're not human. I was, once. He gestured gently to the pods. But I chose to be more. What did they do to you? He tilted his head. They gave me peace. They removed the parts of me that hurt, that hated, that feared. No, I said, eyes narrowing. They removed the parts of you that fought. His expression didn't change. And yet here you are, fighting, still bound by pain, still chasing vengeance, still burning. You're damn right I am, I growled, because pain is memory, and memory is identity. You stripped yours clean and called it evolution. It is, he said, and soon the others will wake. Oh, obedient, perfect, not broken things clinging to dying empires. Just peace. I don't want peace if it costs us who we are. He smiled sadly. Then you'll burn. He stepped back. The alarms triggered. Containment pods began to open. The lights pulsed blood red. And I realized we weren't here to stop harmony. We were here to fight it. The pods opened one by one. They emerged with the grace of sleepwalkers, men, women, children, all perfectly still in expression, eyes wide and distant. Harmony's children, not clones, not puppets. Worse, us, what they'd made from our memories, our instincts, our brokenness, filtered and sterilized until nothing raw remained, until resistance was just a bad dream they didn't understand. The Harmony Prime stood behind them like a father watching his children learn to breathe. They don't hate you, Elias, he said softly. They pity you. We stood back to back, the team in a defensive ring, guns raised, breath held, non-lethal only. I barked. They're victims, not enemies. Noted, Reza muttered, unlocking her stun rifle. But if they try to lobotomize me with kindness, I'm putting one down. The children of Harmony moved in silence. No weapons, no fear, just calm resolve. Hands outstretched, not to kill, to touch, to spread the programming. They're networked, Gene said, tapping his holopad frantically. Brain-to-brain interface mesh. We're looking at live neural contagion, emotional resonance, memory transfer, the works. They touch us, we become them, Reza hissed. The first one reached me. A girl, maybe 20. Her face was so familiar it stopped me cold. She looked like my niece. The one who died when the Concord bombed out the Denver Arcology. She raised her hand. You don't have to be angry anymore, Elias, she whispered. I'm not angry, I whispered back. I'm alive. I fired. She dropped, stunned, her body folding gently like someone going to sleep. The others paused, not in fear, not in rage, in confusion. They couldn't compute resistance. That gave us 5 seconds. I shouted, stagger formation, push back. We advanced slowly, carefully, non-lethal discharges flaring in arcs of blue and white. The Harmony drones didn't fight. They just tried to embrace. And that was a horror, not war, not brutality, but the suffocating, all-consuming gentleness of a system that wanted to hold you so tightly you stopped being anything at all. They were undoing us by pretending to save us. Override uplink ready. Gene called out from the terminal. But I need Harmony Prime to initiate it. He's a control node. Reza and I locked eyes. No words needed. She pivoted left, clearing a path. I sprinted through it. The Harmony drone swarmed toward me. But I didn't fire. I weaved, dodged, felt their hands brush my jacket, felt a strange warmth creeping into my skull like honey in the mind. Softness, stillness, surrender. I gritted my teeth and slammed my forearm into Harmony Prime's chest, pinning him against the wall. You want to know what makes us human? I spat. Pain, he said calmly. Loss. Fire. No, I leaned close. Choice. I jammed the neural disruptor into his temple and triggered the spike. For a second, just a flicker, his expression changed. Not fear, wonder. And then he collapsed. The drones froze mid-step, like statues losing meaning. The lights dimmed. The simulation feed stuttered and collapsed, revealing nothing but bare walls and cold metal. Gene hit the uplink. The virus spread like wildfire. Not a weapon, but a reminder. A reactivation of suppressed human memory engrams inside the Harmony subjects. A flood would have been erased. Songs, names, pain, love, history. Real things. Sharp things. They fell to the floor, shaking. Some cried. Some screamed. Some just curled into themselves. But they were waking up. Reza, touch your earpiece. Global signal launched. We've hit every Harmony node in this quadrant. Feedback loops are burning through the Concord uplinks. I exhaled, slowly. Not victory. Not yet, but a heartbeat in the silence. Behind us, Harmony Prime stirred. His voice was weak. Human, I remember my name. What is it? I asked, kneeling beside him. Micah Voss. My blood went cold. My brother was named Kalen. His eyes met mine. He didn't just send you the intel, he whispered. He sent me. I staggered back. Micah clutched his head. He tried to stop them. Tried to save what was left of me. But I was too far gone. Too deep inside Harmony. I became their proof of concept. And now, I asked, trembling. He looked up at me. Now I burn too. And with that, he tapped a trigger embedded in his wrist. The walls groaned. The containment bay began to shake. Self-destruct. Reza shouted, "Move!" We grabbed what we could, the half-awake, the dazed, the broken, and ran. Through tunnels that screamed with collapsing steel. Through fire and smoke and the rage of a system trying to destroy its own failure. We made it to the Sparrow with seconds to spare. As we launched skyward, the Harmony lab detonated behind us, an underground sun swallowing everything it had ever created. Below us, the lie of Harmony ended. Above us, the truth of humanity screamed back into the stars. There's a silence that comes after a detonation, not the silence of absence, the silence of reckoning. We watched from orbit as the Harmony facility buried itself in its own ashes, self-destruct protocols vaporizing decades of Concord experimentation. What remained wasn't just ruin, it was revelation, because now the galaxy knew. They didn't just subjugate us, they tried to replace us. We limped the Sparrow back toward the outer belt, hull scorched, engines groaning. We left behind more than a crater. We left behind proof. Data cores, genetic archives, neural logs uploaded, duplicated, broadcasted into every sympathetic network we could reach. Within days, riots turned to rebellions. Within weeks, colonies once too afraid to whisper now screamed. Concord systems began to fracture, not under human attack, but under their own conscience. We hadn't broken the galaxy. We'd reminded it, and that, more than any virus, any weapon, any uprising, that was what scared them. I stood now in the center of Freepoint Station, an asteroid base turned provisional capital for the resistance. Above me, banners waved, not of Earth, not of any one world, but fire wrapped in chains broken wide open. The new symbol of unity, the symbol of choice. I looked out at the crowd gathered in the amphitheater, thousands from a dozen species. Human and not, fighters, healers, refugees, engineers, survivors. They weren't cheering. They were waiting, because we hadn't won. We'd only declared that we were done losing. I took the stage, no armor, no rifle, no symbols. Just my voice. My name is Elias Voss. I was born on a planet the Concord tried to erase. I served in a war they tried to forget. I stood in chains before their tribunal, and I left it in fire. A pause, a breath, the weight of it all pressing down, and still I spoke. We were told that obedience was peace. That silence was progress. That memory was dangerous. And they were right. I raised my hand, clenching a fist, scars visible even in the spotlight, because memory is dangerous. It's how we know who we are. It's how we remember what was taken. And it's how we know what's worth fighting for. Reza stood just offstage, arms folded, her gnawed quiet but strong. Jean was beside her, streaming the speech to every liberated node across the galaxy. I looked out again, not just at the crowd, but beyond, to the system still watching, to the Concord still clinging to its broken throne. To the Concord, we do not come to conquer. We do not come to destroy. But we will not disappear. We will not kneel. We will not forget. I leaned forward. You tried to erase us. You failed. We are human, and we are coming home. The crowd didn't erupt. They stood, silent, firm, resolute, because this wasn't the end. It was the beginning. Later that night, I stood alone in the observatory dome above the station, watching stars flicker in fractured constellations. Systems still burning. Systems still fighting. A reflection appeared beside me. Killen, older now, haunted, but alive. You saw the transmission, I said without turning. I saw everything, he replied. I'm sorry about Micah. He nodded. He made his choice. The most human thing he could have done. I turned to him. What now? He looked up at the stars. We rebuild, not just Earth, not just the colonies. Something bigger, something true, a union that remembers the past but refuses to repeat it. And Concord, they're bleeding, but not dead. Then we're not done. He smiled faintly. We'll never be done. I stared out at the stars once more. So many of them looked like prison bars. But now I saw them for what they really were. Doors. And humanity? We don't knock. We break through.